I mean, but insects were enticed into getting pollen on their bodies from a bribe of sugar, basically. And they went to another plant, and that plant that was then able to get that information. Maybe it was of the same species or a close relative, and this has simply grown and grown and grown. It's grew to such an extent that from where you've seen examples of conifers and I think they're called horselips, which are now tiny millimetre higher plants, but from the coal forests, because those are the forests that became coal and oil and all the things, the fossil fuels, which are for geopolitical reasons as much as environmental reasons, which are causing humans to slaughter each other. Were massive trees, 90 feet high. Something this big today was 90 feet high hundreds of millions of years ago, in the time when animals were basically, it was the Burkean state of nature. Well, when we look at Darwin, we're not looking at simply what's the survival of the most violent or strongest. We're talking about the survival of the most apt, and that could be a violent strategy or a cooperative strategy. It could be somewhere in between, a bribe. So once flowering plants started to develop, and they then became into trees, and the same kind of basic body plan is there, but flowering plants had 2 to 4 times as many capillaries. So now they're affecting the water cycle, which means that instead of morning dew dropping on deserts which were uncolonised before, flowering plants are going to these deserts. They're putting down roots. They're stopping the sands and dunes blowing everywhere. In fact, on Bear Grylls and Ray Mears, you can go and see plants today which are putting down roots, which behind them dunes will grow, which will be other places that other flowering plants and can colonise. Even things like as spiteful as cactuses and things like that. Why do these plants have defences which are flowering plants have defences which are specific to certain animals? Is a good question to ask at this point. Conifers and other plants are trying to develop a massively general defence. They're tough to get the nutrients out of. It's got warning signs all over the place. Do not eat me. I am trying to preserve as much energy within myself from the natural environment and store it. Whereas if you look at a cactus, it is something that is advertising to certain animals. Look, this is where food is. Yes, it's storing water. Yes, there's thorns and things like that. And if you try and bite into the main plant or something, there's sap and things that are poisonous and will make it. In terms of Arabia, there's something that looks like a melon, and if camels eat it, they go around for days in a delirium. Or people who are stuck in the desert, they eat it and they die. But at the same time, that plant has got, even in the desert, even with its roots burrowing down 30 feet or more to get to water, is still trying to breed. It's still trying to expand its potential for progeny. So it'll have flowers, it will have bribes for insects and birds and all things which are specifically that it's co-opted into getting a symbiotic relationship almost. Although where the power is debatable, because of course some plants are dependent on their pollinators and others the pollinator, whether it be a bird, a mammal, or an insect, is completely the slave of the plant. It doesn't get its energy and food, its bribe, its trade anywhere else. So it's not completely selfish and it's not completely unselfish, altruistic. There is a condition of aptness which is repeated over and over and over again. And that's why you see, as I said, with the advent of the ability to trade, means that you're not expending so much energy in terms of sort of the pine cones and things that you see conifers have, or you put round your tree at Christmas. Those are defensive. That plant has put a lot of energy into giving the seeds inside coatings for protection with enough starch and energy to root that plant near to itself, rather than them being stolen. And that's why they're quite sort of defensive looking structures. Whereas flowering plants pushed conifers up into those specific roles where it wasn't really advantageous for flowering plants to become specialists in terms of climate. They became specialists in terms of the trades with animals which they co-opted, or where they put their roots in with funguses so they can make chemical messages between plants, and plants are aware of what animals are doing in some senses. If you see an animal that if a plant senses that an animal is there which it doesn't want, it will send chemical messages to other plants to get those plants to start automatically producing toxins so that it will ward that animal off. And that's important also for the balance of the entire ecosystem, which is why you have such problems with introduced animals like goats and rats and horses and things which are out of balance, if there's not predation. Which is, why one of the reasons why they're thinking of reintroducing lions to North America to control the feral horse population, because it's devastating the plants there, which have lost since the Ice Age a sort of natural defence. Okay, so I'm all over the place here with the different times. I don't want to confuse people. I'm getting to the kind of two general concepts. One system is based completely on predation, from herbivores to plants to carnivores to herbivores, or either in the oceans from plankton feeders and different arthropods fighting and killing each other, and fish and everything else, from the Permian age right through to the Jurassic before flowering plants. After flowering plants, you're seeing the injection of water into the biological system. It's not simply evaporating into the desert, into the mists, like you might see today in Namibia or the Atacama Desert in South America. You're seeing it being kept in the soil, in the air, and you're seeing the growth of flowering plants into trees. And so they're growing and growing and growing, and the deserts are diminishing to the point where the water cycle is being added so much more fresh water to it from convection from the sea into plants from photosynthesis and everything else through the capillaries and stomata in plants, leaves and trunks, that there is more rain. And it's a continuous cycle of rain. It just keeps going until you've got more rivers which are eroding limestone, which is itself, you could say, is either it's sort of the calcium deposits of other animals which have been put down and pushed up by tectonic forces, which are natural forces, not biological.